New testimony expected this coming week in the House Oversight Committee's Epstein investigation. On Monday, lawmakers will hear from Tova Noel, one of the federal prison guards on duty the night Epstein died. Then Thursday, the committee will depose Sarah Kellen, one of Epstein's former assistants, who has been listed as one of the 4 potential co-conspirators. Her lawyers say she is a victim of Epstein's abuse. This after Democrats on the committee heard dramatic testimony from survivors at a field hearing this week in Palm Beach County, where many of Epstein's crimes took place.
When I was 14 years old, I was abused by Jeffrey Epstein. He abused me until I was 17 years old. What happened to me was terrible, but what happened after that by our own government changed my life just as much. I came here today to ask for one simple thing, to make sure this never happens again.
I kept my identity protected as Jane Doe. I woke up one day with my name mentioned over 500 times. While the rich and powerful remained protected by reduction, my name was exposed to the world.
Joining me now, one of the women you saw testifying there, Danielle Bensky. We had yet to hear from you there, but I'm glad to have you now. I want to get to that emotional testimony in just a second. But the fact is that this hearing, it carried no legal authority. So what was the goal?
I think the goal is always to have people understand the inner workings a little bit more. And I think in this particular case, it was incredible to hear Rosa's testimony. I think she's opening doors for a whole new community of survivors that we really haven't seen come forward before. We know that there are a lot of victims and survivors that have come from other countries whose visas were fast-tracked, and we just haven't been able to really hear those stories yet. So I think her bravery was so tremendous in stepping forward and bringing that information to light. So I think, you know, it's also come very full circle. I remember I was at the House Oversight Committee without knowing who I was going to be talking to, and there was this huge sort of hearing with 6 of us, and I remember sitting next to Annie Farmer and Annie taking my hand and being so supportive of me, and I remember feeling like, gosh, she has all of this information. How did she know all of this, you know? And I think now to sit on that panel of 4 of us and feel like we're ushering in the next young victim, it's pretty interesting to see that the torch pass is so real.
How hard is that? I mean, I saw you gesturing and trying to, you know, give her some support with a pat on the back as she was breaking down there. What's that do to you internally? I
mean, I think it puts us right back to when we first stepped forward. And I always think about Virginia and how she was so brave and she did it on her own. And that torch pass has happened consistently. I talked to Courtney, who you saw there speak just a couple minutes ago. And Courtney said, you know, I have kids. I'm grateful that you're stepping up now. And at some point, it's going to be my turn to step back and somebody else will step in. So I just knowing that this whole group of survivors really has each other's back. You see Maria there, is such a beautiful image of her. And it really is that moment where a community of people are there to have your back all the time.
And we see you there testifying just a moment ago. So this was something only Democrats from the Oversight Committee joined this hearing. There were no Republicans present for it. What do you hope was conveyed to the entire hearing? To the entire committee.
I think understanding this timeline a little bit better, because we know that Maria filed her first report in 1996. My abuse in 2004 was really the middle of that timeline. And then to see Rosa, who is talking about she was abused and raped while Jeffrey Epstein had an ankle monitor on.
5 years, I think she talked about.
Yeah, for 5 years. And so you're talking about a timeline that spans from 1996 all the way to 2008, just in our testimonies alone, just in that room. And so there's so much within there that you can start to pick apart. And I think the trouble is there are so many different avenues to explore that can feel really overwhelming. And all we're asking the government for is just pick one. So I think that we're so grateful to the oversight and to the Democrats on the House Oversight because I do think they brought some really interesting topics to light. One being immigration and how were visas fast-tracked, right? Another being sort of the financial risk that we're always advocating saying we can't hold down real jobs. Like, so there was a whole nother part of this that was about compensation. There was another one that was about what does justice look like? And it is about a culture shift, right? So they're really calling attention to these very specific things, which we really appreciate, but we would love to see that from the Republicans.
There's another avenue to go down in terms of Sarah Kellen. What are your expectations there?
I really just hope she says everything that she knows. I think, you know, she saw a lot. She was there for a long time, and it's complicated. I think, you know, when you are victimized and then you are put in a position where you're manipulated to recruit, that is a very sticky, complex situation. But I think that it speaks to sex trafficking as a larger picture, and people really need to understand what sex trafficking is and what it looks like. It really is like a pyramid scheme where people were constantly feeling coerced to bring their friends. I know with Jeffrey, he said to me more times than I can count that I could end my own abuse if I just brought more people, and I never did, and that was my choice. But, you know, some people are in more dire situations than others, so I think it's really important to look at the full picture, but she does have a lot of information, and I really hope she'll be honest.
I'm so glad everybody has you to help them through all of this, including us here on the show, as we get more information and insight to the atrocities. Danielle Bensky,
Thank you
friend,
so
thank you.
much, Alex.
Yeah.
Thank you.